Hey, what's going on, everybody? We're back in another BKFC Reddit Ask Me Anything Ice Wars editions. We're joined by the main event, James the Last Hooligan Brooks. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Great. So I hear there's an imposter hooligan on this upcoming. Well, do we see you fighting this other hooligan at some point?
That was my joke to him. Like I said, we're buddies. I've known him for a bit, and I shot him a message, and I was like, we gotta fight for this name. So yeah, maybe down the road we'll see. It's all in good fun, but yeah, I think he was hooligan first, but I was hooligan first in Ice Wars.
So you are a veteran of Ice Wars. What can fans expect? Like, I'm a guy who I've watched a couple Ice Wars, but I've never been to one. So is the atmosphere? I mean, you're a hockey player, a fighter. Like, what's the atmosphere like on Ice Wars?
The first one that I did was Ice Wars 2 at the River Cree in Edmonton, and it's a casino event center type setting. Atmosphere was fantastic. They had smoke when you're coming out. Announcers were great. Everything was fantastic. And then I did Ice Wars 3, which was in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Atmosphere was a little different. They did it at a saloon, so it was a little bit different, but again, I mean, it was still awesome. A lot of people there. The atmosphere with the fighters and the guys, it's a lot different than boxing or UFC promotion. The hockey players are mostly kind of leaving on the ice guys, so there isn't as much showboating or shit talking or anything like that before. Everybody's just ready to fight and drink beers afterwards together.
So you're a very busy guy, and I wasn't 100% sure if we were going to get you. Your opponent actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, look, you need to interview this guy." He goes, "We used to be roommates together." He goes, "Like, he's a great guy." He told me a bit of your backstory, but it's funny. Your opponent was pushing for me to make sure to get you on the show.
Well, Will's a good guy. We played together in Vermont for a little bit, and yeah, I mean he's a good dude. We known each other for 15 years or so, and yeah, I'm definitely a busy guy. So
How is it fighting somebody who's a former teammate, but you guys are clearly friends?
I mean, I think that goes back to what I said about hockey players just being a little bit different breed. We can go out on the ice in a game and you can be best buds with somebody, but when the mitts come off, you're trying to kill each other, and then when the fight's over, there's a pat on the butt, and you go drink some beers together. So I think hockey in general is different than most sports in that aspect. You just leave it on the ice, you leave it in the ring.
Okay, so he was telling me, he said the one thing that he really admires about you, he said you're a guy that works two jobs, you're a single father of four, and you have time to play hockey and train and do all this shit. He's impressed that you have time to do all this stuff.
Well, I wish I had more time, that's for sure. But yeah, I'm a single dad. I've got four kids. Oldest is 9, youngest is 3. I've had them by myself for just about 3 years now, and I work during the day as a funeral director, and I'm a high school hockey director in the evening. So it's two full-time jobs, and I find time in between and before to run and hit the bag and work with my trainer. And I don't really know how I find the time. I just kind of force it in there and try to take it one day at a time.
Interesting, you're a funeral director. I used to do decedent transportation, and I managed a crematory for about a decade. I love the death industry. I like working with animals, and I love the death industry because like people don't talk back to you. What made you get into the funeral industry?
Really good friend of mine, a lifelong friend of mine who I've been playing hockey with since I was 10. His family owns a funeral home. They've been in the funeral home business since 1898. And we've talked about it for years, just me coming over and I've done some removals with him when it's in my area, and he's shorthanded over the years. And being a single dad with four kids, there's just never enough money. So I was looking for something that I could do during the day that didn't stop me from coaching hockey, and that would be semi-flexible. So he's been fantastic about working with the schedule and making sure I don't miss hockey, and that I can train. And it's good working for somebody I know and a family that I've known my whole life and respect.
Okay, so I mean, I've had some crazy calls. but you've done some removals. What is the biggest person you've removed? I've been to a call where the person was 850 pounds. What's your biggest removal so far?
So I haven't done an 800, but I did assist in a 600-pound. And
Yeah.
I didn't do the full removal. It was actually before I worked at the funeral home, but I did meet the team at the funeral home. We needed to get him off the table and into the casket,
Yeah.
and we had to use a hydraulic jack in the garage to lift him up and get the casket under and get him in. So there's definitely some challenges to it. You find like a small room and position that doesn't work, and you can't really get the cot in. But it's all part of the job. And as you got to get them out of there. So
We will definitely have to share some stories down the line because yeah, it's so interesting because like a lot, dude, it's crazy how many people are freaked out by death. But I mean, like it's one of those things. Like I've done, like I've picked up more, and I've dealt with more people than live in my town. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things. Like, and it's just a part of life. But yeah, like I can't wait to share more stories with you.
yeah, honestly, I mean, a lot of people are like, how do you do that? How do you deal with death every day? Like, it's got to be sad, it's got to be tough. Other people are, just grossed out by the idea of, touching someone who's died. But at the end of the day, I mean, it happens to all of us. It's the natural progression of everything. So it's really not that unusual. And when it comes to the emotional side of it, most of the people we deal with are elderly. They've lived, long, healthy, successful lives. A lot of times the families, as you know, are, relieved that the person is finally in a better place or out of pain. So, a lot of it is just, it's almost a good feeling to be able to help people during their toughest times. There's obviously the sad situations, when you get a kid or a baby or somebody that, is obviously gone far too soon, and those are tough, but they're few and far between. And somebody has to do it. Somebody's got to be there and take care of it. Otherwise, what do you do? So I look at it as a positive. I get to help people through, make it just a little bit easier in the toughest time of their lives. So.
Okay, let's go ahead and talk about your hockey experience. It sounds like you've been playing since you were a child. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. I grew up playing travel hockey in Chicago. Gold in Central States. Played Loyola in high school, which is one of the top high schools here for high school hockey, and did a couple of years of college. Went over to Sweden, played Junior A and Division II over there for a season, and then I came back over here and just bounced around the low minors, the AAHA, the AHL, the Federal League, the glorious minor leagues.
Have you always been sort of a tough guy? Like did you always want to be a fighter? Like where did that come from?
Um, yes and no. I grew up on the northwest side of Chicago. I think that's really where the fighting began. It's a predominantly Irish and Polish neighborhood, and I don't know if it was just my generation or if it's still like that now, but we just grew up fighting. There was always a fight happening at the park down the street or after school, and somebody was always talking about somebody else, and then you had to go fight. So that translated into hockey, and when you're fighting your friends growing up, and then somebody does something to your teammate on the ice, you kind of just jump into it. And I wouldn't say I was ever really an enforcer per se, but I was never shy about getting into it or defending myself or defending my friends or my teammates. And I think it wasn't until I played in Evansville in the AAHL that I really took on that role. And that really just happened because I came back from Sweden. I was really excited to be home. I spent the first 2 months home eating and drinking, and I put on 40 pounds or so. Anybody who's been to Chicago knows it's really easy to gain weight eating Chicago food. So, I got home from Sweden where the steaks are thin and the food is healthy, and I just stuffed myself. So I started the following season playing for the Chicago Blaze in the same league, and I had no business staying on that team. I was out of shape. I was out of breath. I couldn't keep up, and they cut me. And found myself down in Evansville, and coach said, "How do you feel about your shape?" I said, "Not very good, but it'll get better." And but just keep me on the team. I'll fight anybody you want me to fight. And that's kind of what happened. I fought 21 times in 25 games, and
Jeez.
yeah, that summer was a bit foggy, but that's kind of where it started. And from there, I feel like I've made some. I watched those videos from that 2010 season, and I don't like watching them because it doesn't feel like me today. I feel like I've come so far since those first handful of fights. But yeah, that's where it all started, and now it's kind of the point where I don't really care who I fight. If there's a reason for it, like I've been in enough of them that here we go. So
I think it's pretty neat that you get to be on this Ice Wars, and Mendoza's on the thing. What's it like? I mean, do you guys train together at all? Like, it's pretty cool that like there's two guys from the same team that are fighting on the same Ice Wars card.
yeah, he's I actually met him in like 2018. I think a little bit after he came back from the service, and he was he's a goalie by trade, so he was I talked with him about being the goalie coach for the program that I was at the time, and it didn't end up panning out just because of prior commitments to other people and everything. And then we reconnected this last year when he joined up with my senior A team. I run a senior A team out of Chicago that does predominantly just travels to nice destinations like California or Reno or Colorado or whatnot. And he's like, yeah, put me in. I'll fight anybody. Like, he sound like my kind of guy. So yeah, he was on our team this year, and he can pack a punch, that's for sure. So he fought a guy in Reno this year, and which might have been one of the best knockouts I've ever seen firsthand. The video really doesn't do it justice because the ref's in the way, but it was like he knocked him out cold. I think the other guy actually thought he won the fight until his teammates told him what happened. So, right. But yeah, I mean, we haven't had as much chances to train as we'd like just because of work schedules and whatnot. But we are going to get on the synthetic in a couple days here and have like a final session before we head to Michigan.
Okay, so you're a guy who has experience with this. Would you say cardio is the key? I mean, like, clearly you know how to fight, but I mean, like, from what I keep hearing from everybody, like the cardio, even though it's 1 minute rounds, cardio.
Yeah, I mean, 1 minute doesn't sound like much, but it's not a boxing match where you spend, half the round posturing or, gaining position or keeping them at a distance or anything like that. I mean, as everybody knows, in a hockey fight, you grab onto the guy and you're chucking him. So, you watch like one of the fights of the year in the NHL and maybe it goes 40 seconds and everybody's, hooting and hollering about how great of a fight it was. But to go 1 minute and to go 1 minute, 2 or 3 times, it definitely takes a toll. And I would say cardio is the number one here. Really nobody should be getting involved in this if they don't have, adequate fights under their belt, so the fighting, as much as, you can always get better and you can always train technique and stuff like that. For me, the fighting isn't as much of an issue as it is just making sure the cardio's there. And I learned that the hard way in my first fight against Corey Allen. First half of the first round was fantastic, but our helmets kept coming off, which at the time I thought was a benefit because I kept getting, 10-second, 15-second breaks while they fixed our helmets. But by the end of the fight, I realized that, the 2 minute round or 2 1 minute rounds for 2 minutes total turned into me being out of breath for 10 minutes with all the stoppages. So
Right.
I made it a point after that to cut some weight and find myself in a position where the cardio was better. And I definitely upped that for the last fight. And then I learned how much 6,500 feet of altitude can affect your cardio. So I'm excited for Michigan and the lack of altitude and just the knowledge I've gained from being on the synthetic twice before and, being part of this twice.
Okay, Ice Wars teamed up with BKFC. Is that on your radar at all? Is fighting for bare knuckle? I mean, you're a hockey fighter. You fight bare knuckle anyway. Does being a professional bare knuckle boxer or bare knuckle fighter, does that interest you at all, or are you kind of just like the ice wars?
Well, I mean, I'd be lying if I said it doesn't interest me. But just with everything I've got going on, I think jumping off the ice and doing BKFC would require a different level of training and commitment that
Yeah.
I don't know if I can really commit to that. If my life changed or if circumstance changed in my life, maybe. But we all know how expensive everything is right now, and you know, I work all day, I work all night, and it's enough to barely get by. So being able to put full days into that type of training, and the fact that on my next birthday I'll be 40 years old, I probably won't be getting into BKFC. But I do have fight left in me, and I'm really comfortable hockey fighting. So I'll probably do that a little bit longer, and you know, we'll see. We'll see how long it lasts before it's time to hang them up.
Okay, my last few questions I've been asking all you players. What is your favorite hockey movie growing up?
Obviously Slapshot's a popular movie. Love Slapshot. I'm a big Youngblood fan.
Yeah.
As much as a few scenes were a bit of a stretch, it's just such a classic. So, the newer ones like Goon was funny, but I don't know if I'd put it up there with top favorite movies or anything like that.
Okay, who was your favorite enforcer growing up?
Probert for sure. I've worn 24 my whole life. My little brother wore 24, and he was always, a little less of a favorite when he was wearing a Wings jersey, but overall, just I think he's the best of the best, and anybody who beat him, he came back and beat them almost immediately, and on top of it, he was a hockey player too, so he wasn't just out there mucking it up, but he could play hockey and he could score and he had skill, so he was always a guy I idolized.
How do you condition your hands? You said you're a guy who fought 21 times in 25 games. What do you do for hand conditioning? How do you make it so you don't get injured?
So that season, I was young and I didn't know anything like I know now. So I really didn't condition my hands at all. I just chucked them and just kept going. And it's kind of my mindset is just keep going. Nowadays, I hit the bag, and I think that's changed a lot, and I've learned a lot more about diet and nutrition, and what you need to put in your body to not be tired and to just be at your peak. So a little more now than then, but back that season, I didn't really do anything to prepare or to take care of myself. So that was a rough year, that's for sure.
Okay, and then my last question I always ask people the first time I interview: do you remember the first time you were in a street fight? The first time you punched somebody out of anger that wasn't related to you?
Um, yeah, I mean, I remember the first time I got into a fight. Uh, my best friend growing up had me convinced that this kid from the neighborhood was talking shit about me.
Okay.
In hindsight, I don't think he even knew who I was, but my buddy was a bit of a shit stir. He was a couple years older than me, and I think he was a freshman in high school, and I was in seventh grade. And he just had me convinced that this kid had been running his mouth, and that if I didn't do something about it, nobody would respect me. So saw this kid at Burger King, and I went up to him and I said, hey, I heard you running your mouth or something to that effect. And pretty sure he told me he didn't know who I was, and I just kept pushing. So we went outside, big crowd of kids, big circle, and I pushed him a couple times, and he just stood there. And at some point, one of the girls we were with started yelling at me to stop, and I turned around to tell her to be quiet, and he cracked me when I wasn't looking. So I woke up on the ground
Oh
with him on
no.
top of me, Yeah, first fight. I mean, he knocked me out cold, and I woke up with my buddy behind me and him in front of me, and no fight was happening anymore. And I remember the walk home, my buddy being like, "You got knocked the fuck out."
Ah,
and, that's where it started, and I learned that I was a little bigger than some of the kids, and it was really a mentality thing. Once the mentality changed, the outcome changed, and the fights after that didn't end the same way. So, but that was the first one for sure.
all right. All right, man. Well, is there any message you have for the fans or anything, shout outs, sponsors, anybody you want to give a thanks to before we call it a day?
I got a list of sponsors that have supported me all the way through. The funeral home I work for, Giles Funeral Home, has sponsored me since before I even started. My buddy Matt Herbeck and his Kramer and Herbeck law firm has been sponsoring me since the beginning. Village Inn Pizzeria has been hosting my watch parties. I could keep going, but it's been great having all the support. And the last Ice Wars, I sold 116 T-shirts to friends of mine who bought them and supported. And obviously, this is a new sport. We want to grow it. So, message to the fans is watch it, share it, talk about it. If it's something you like seeing, something you want to keep seeing, make sure that that you're helping put it out there, because 20 plus years ago, the UFC was just starting, and
Sure.
they didn't have it down, and they weren't wearing gloves, and there was the rules were different, and they hadn't figured out the product that they have now, and look what it's grown into. So there's no reason that this can't be a monumental major sport down the line. So we're just trying to pave the way right now, and we can definitely use the support of anyone interested to share it, talk about it, ask questions. That's why we go on these podcasts like yours, and just promote it. So big thank you to AJ Galante and Charlie Nama for keeping me involved, and doing all the behind the scenes work to get this going, and everybody else at BKFC and Ice Wars that are making this happen.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Brooksy, for your time, and I can't wait to watch. I plan on going, so I can't wait to meet you, man.
Well, thanks for having me on, and look forward to seeing you in a week.
See you, man. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.